I don't really understand the point of talking about a game like Cuphead. Like, what do I even say? I'm an 18-year-old kid who barely knows how to make a Geometry Dash level look good. Do I really deserve an opinion on a studio that's created one of the most technically impressive games ever? Well, this is the internet, so f*** it. Much like everyone else, I recently played through Cuphead's delicious last course. And it's been a while since a game has forced so many thoughts in my head. Over a year, in fact. So, here I go. Every frame of Cuphead's DLC was meticulously crafted to ensure a heightened reaction out of its players. And I'm not even exaggerating, that shit's hand-drawn down to the frame. I believe that this fact alone helps trim the game of any of its potential fat. If it's not going to provide an unforgettable experience for the player, then it realistically is not worth animating. Because of this, all the DLC's 6 main bosses feel like performances. This could be thanks to the scripted phases that the bosses transform into, the personality and immersion that each boss presents to the player, or something as simple as the title card that appears before entering one, making you feel like you're purchasing tickets to a long-awaited show. Either way, Cuphead just has a way of feeling important. When I play it, I feel humbled in a way that I've never felt playing a game before, as if too much care went into creating such a spectacle, only to have my greasy fingers controlling the guy on screen. So much action is packed into around 2 minutes of gameplay that the developers needed a way to stretch out the playtime of the game in a feasible way. The method they chose was through difficulty. Cuphead bosses are obviously hard. Going into one blind, the average player can expect to die close to 30 seconds in, only to be blown away when they realize that they have barely made a dent on the boss's total health. The debate on difficulty isn't a topic that I want to focus on too much for this video, but I will throw my hat into the ring with a few thoughts. For starters, Cuphead gives you all the tools you need to progress in the game. If you find a challenge that you can't seem to make progress on, the answer is very rarely to get good. Most of the time, simply experimenting with weapons and charms will get you significantly closer to your goal. Difficulty naturally encourages experimentation. If you find yourself hitting your head against a wall, try something different. I also believe that Cuphead gives you all the tools to win for a much simpler purpose. It shows that the game is not against you, and that it actually wants you to see all of it. It'd be stupid for the developers to stitch this much passion into a project if most people were unable to make it far enough to see said passion. Therefore, the game is balanced so that when the player is presented with a boss, they're forced to take in their surroundings and experiment. They spend just enough time to appreciate the work put into the boss, before conquering it and moving on to the next one. From that mindset, Cuphead's pacing and difficulty is perfect. Cuphead also feels like a performance thanks to the fact that the game's music is literally performed live. I won't spend too long on this, but just know that as a saxophone player who would consider themselves an intermediate jazz musician, I want to thank everyone who contributed to the soundtrack of the game. It's everything I could strive to be as a performer. I appreciate you for all being such good role models. I truly hope to be like you one day. So yeah, in a way, Cuphead's DLC is about as good of an experience as you can get playing a video game. The presentation is unlike anything else, the soundtrack is mind-blowing, the game is bursting at the seams with creativity. It took me a little over an hour to beat the whole thing. I'm strictly against the idea that video games need to be a certain length. Even when price is brought into the question, I will almost always side with the video game as long as it's clear that the developers put time into the project they created. Hell, Super Mario Universe could have easily been a full-length Mario game, but after 3 planets I felt like I had gotten everything I wanted out of the concept of the game, and I wanted to move on. Despite everything I just said, I still felt a twinge of disappointed when the DLC was over. Don't get me wrong, it was easily worth the $8 of admission, but I realize now that it's probably the last of this specific gameplay style we'll ever get, and I beat it in an afternoon. At the end of the day, I just need to trust the idea that Studio MDHR knew when to cut their game off. To them, anything more than what they gave us would have been unnecessary for whatever reason. But these people aren't stupid, so it's probably a very good reason. It's kinda unfair to judge Cuphead as a video game. It's far too ambitious of a game to be compared to anything else, which is why it clashed with so many reviews and game journalists when it first released. It's a prime example of an aspect of art culture that I generally dislike. Every medium is funneled through the same process and reaches the same outcome. Why is a project as grand as Cuphead worthy of being cut up into a 5-minute video made by a corporation and spit out with a fucking number that tells you the game's worth? With that mindset, why is every music artist forced to put their work on a specific list of streaming platforms if they want their music to get any exposure? And why does every famous painting end up behind a rope at a museum? A sad shortcoming of our society is the fact that everybody is forced to make art with a known outcome. If it is deemed worth money, it suffers the same fate as everything else of its kind. Cuphead remains an outlier because the developer's passion outweighed their knowledge of the outcome. And by that fact alone, it has my respect over any other game I've played.